Hey, this is Bryce and welcome back to my YouTube channel, Jacket Trades. In this video, I am going to walk you through the steps that it takes to manufacture a 3D printed tire. So I've got, I guess, 3 completed tires. I just made these 2 tires for the video. This is a kind of a test tire, so I could use it, but it has some issues with it. And then I've got another tire half here, and I've got more tires on the printer. And then I've also made up some jigs for basically assembling these tires. And I guess I should back up a little bit. So when I print these tires, I'm now doing them in halves. Because when you try to print them as one piece, the back side ends up looking like garbage because of the supports, and you just get a very incomplete surface on the back side. And that's true for all 3D printed parts typically, at least FDM printed parts. So someone over on RC10 Talk had the great idea of printing them in halves and then bonding them together. He had suggested using Flex Seal, and I tried that, but it doesn't actually bond to this material. This is TPE. I tried it, and then when it dried I could peel it off, so there was obviously no bond there. To get a good bond, this is a thermoset plastic, obviously because it's printed. So I use heat basically to melt the seam halves on a hot plate, and then I squish them together using these jigs, which basically center the 2 halves together. And in the case of the rear spike tire, I have these grooves here to line up the spikes, so because there is a middle row of spikes, and to get those lined up properly, we use the jig for that. So I'm just looking at this tire. So this video will walk through the various steps involved with making a tire. There are a lot of steps, but I think I've kind of worked out the bugs where I can make, you know, a fair number of these. It is a lot of work, so I'm not getting into the game of making. I mean, who needs 5th scale RC10 tires? No one. And then I'm also printing test prints for the wheels. So I got the front wheel finished, and I've got a rear wheel on the printer. And assuming these go well, I will then switch to trying to learn how to print in nylon. I'm working on a box for my printer to basically nylon print at a higher temp, so I kind of want to put it in a box to try to maintain that even temperature controlled environment. So I'm getting that box made up for my printer so I can start printing nylon. And I've also ordered my materials, and I just received my plastics order. So I got a bunch of nylon plates. I've got enough material to make parts that I need and then some. And what else? Oh, in parallel I want to do a restoration of an original RC10 as well. I just received this from a lot. I picked up a lot of like 5 RC cars for a pretty decent price. And it included an RC10. This is a late Edinger. It's either a late Edinger or early Cadillac RC10. It's an A-stamp chassis, but it's got the captured spring retainers, as well as the half-hex rod ends. So that indicates kind of a mid-era RC10 cold pen. It does have a notch cut out for an on-off switch, so that's unfortunate. The chassis has been cut, but otherwise it looks pretty good. I don't think there are extra holes drilled in the bottom. The bottom is obviously beat up, but I will try to restore this chassis and sand it out and then re-anodize it, because I am going to be anodizing the chassis for the 5th scale build. I'll go ahead and anodize this chassis as well in that same lot. One thing I would like to try with this build is that there's a guy overseas, Fan RC, that's making injection molded RC10 plastic parts. So he's got basically a kit for the RC10 that includes all the parts, all the suspension parts mainly, and the rear bulkhead. It doesn't include the 6-gear transmission, and it doesn't have the bell cranks, but those you could kind of use third-party aftermarket parts for. The only plastic part broken on this car is actually the front bell crank, the front left bell crank. Everything else looks to be in pretty good shape. It's just really, really dirty. Even the transmission feels okay. It's not super smooth, but it's not gritty either. The more I design the parts on that, the 1/5 scale RC10, I'm kind of leaning more and more towards a world style build with the shock arms and the shock towers. And basically I've started kind of pulling dimensions off of my world's car versus the original Gold Pan. It's a Riri world, so I have to be careful with that. There are some nuanced differences between the Riris and the originals that you have to pay attention to, but it doesn't really matter because I'm building a very kind of, it's a purpose-built design. I'm not expecting my parts to be interchangeable with anything out there. It's for my application only, so I guess I don't have to be that careful. I just have to make sure everything goes together properly. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and switch over to the other cameras and we can look at the steps that I go through to make some tires. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Take care. Bye. Alright, so let's look at our little tire factory. So here we have a tire that's done printing, or tire half. This is a rear tire for the RC5. Here we have a tire half that is printing. This guy's got almost 7 hours left on it. And then on this guy we are printing some test prints for the rear wheels. So that probably has about 8 hours to go on it. I'm doing an inside-outside piece. So once the print is done, you have to take it off the build plates. Well, this material, the TPE, is incredibly sticky and it does not want to come off the build plate. It's very resistant. So what I've discovered is you can throw this in the freezer and it makes things a little hard, and it helps when you go to peel off this this TPE material. This actually comes off. Usually this doesn't come off, it just sticks and tears. So let's go throw this in the freezer and then we'll show how we take it off. Alright, so we're going to toss this in the freezer. Just throw it up in there with tonight's dinner. Let it sit for a bit. The colder it gets, the better. Alright, so this has cooled off long enough. Let's get our tire out. Alright, here we go. Let's get it off. So I'm using one of these scraper blades, and I just come in gently underneath the edges. Try to separate the rubber from the build plate. You don't want to bend our build plates, you gotta be careful. And then we don't want to crease the rubber either. Alright, so we got the tire off. Still have some supports that pop off pretty easily. So on the tire we have these little supports that you can get. The thicker ones you can just kind of pull out. This is on the inside, so you're never going to see this once we bond up the tire. Alright, so the reason that we're printing these tires in halves is because we get, when you 3D print, you get good detail and finish on the top layers, but not so much on the bottom overhung layers that have to be supported. When I was trying to do the whole tire in one shot, this is what they would, well, this is actually after smoothing this out with a hot iron and filling in all the voids, and that's as good as I got. This I spent way less time trying to smooth it out, and you can see kind of how crappy it looks. So you do it in 2 halves, and then you glue them together, and you get a good finish on both sides. The trick though is gluing these together, right? With the front tires it's fairly easy because you're less concerned with the clocking unless you want to try to get the lettering in the right spot. But basically you just have to get them centered and squish them together. With the rears you want to clock the spikes because there's a seam right down that middle spike. So you want to get them clocked and then squish it together at the same time. I like the idea of heat because these are formed with heat. It's a thermoset plastic and we can bond it with heat and it becomes a permanent bond at that point. The caveat is that it's a permanent bond, and so if you screw this up, it's a one-shot deal and you can't Like if I accidentally tweak the clocking just a little bit, I'm not going to be able to go and fix that. It's set, and it sets fast. And so I came up with these glue fixtures. So this is the first one I did. It's kind of a male-female. They locate on that ring. You put one half on one side, the other half on the other side, and then you bring them together, and it locates that ring, and you can squeeze it together by hand, and it sets up so fast that when you're done, you're done. The problem with this design is, in this half, the female half, the rubber sits proud, so I can just take this whole thing and put it on my hot plate and melt that surface without messing up my fixture. And this one, I have a male locating ring which sits proud of the tire, and so I can't just put this on my hot plate. I basically have to put the tire on the hot plate first and then bring this down on top of it to kind of pick it up if I can, and then I can bring that over here and put the two halves together like that. I've done one front wheel already. I've bonded it together and it worked relatively well. And I actually have a technique where if I don't get a full bond, I can go back and kind of fix the bond. And so this is actually a tire that I bonded on my prototype wheel that I printed. So I went back and actually cleaned up the bond because I didn't get a perfect bond joint on the outside diameter. So I went back and fixed that. And I'll show you how I did that once I get into it, because I suspect basically I used a hot knife. I took something like this, a flat razor blade, and I heated it up with a torch, and I went in there because it's thin, and basically you melt that joint and you pull it out and you squeeze it together, and you can work your way around to get a full bond around the diameter of the tire. So that worked well. I assume I'm going to definitely need it on the spike tire, because as I squeeze this together, you can kind of see that the spikes don't fully come together on their own. So I'll probably have to go back and rebond each spike individually. So this is how these tires come out of the print too. This is TPU. You can see it's kind of shiny and plasticky. And this is the TPE, which comes out looking more like rubber. I didn't sandblast this. This tire here is also TPU, but it's been sandblasted, so they look almost identical as far as sheen and color, but this is more natural. Getting into the back tire, so to mitigate, because this is the second design, I kind of took some feedback from the first design. I made the two halves identical so that those tires, they sit proud of both of these fixtures, like so. Then I can bring those two together and squeeze them together. To locate them axially, I have this locating ring which is removable, and I can use that. For clocking, I have a pattern of holes around the perimeter, and I'm going to use these dowel pins to locate. Actually, I just need one pin really to do the clocking. So I need to drill out this hole so it's a little looser, so I can slip in this dowel pin when I go to do the clocking. I'm going to do that now. I'm going to go ahead and drill out that hole real quick. So we're set there. Now we go to the oven with this guy here. So this, to get set up, we just put one tire in there. So that's good to go. Okay, let's get these guys over here. Find my mark. Alright, so the one thing I don't want to do is burn myself with this stuff because it's very hot. I have the oven heated up to 500 F. So I know this one has to be out. I'm going to put the mark away from me. And this one I'm going to have the mark away from me as well. Like so. And this one I will have the mark away from me. Okay. So take out. There's our hot plate. Put that on there like so. Put this guy on there like so. Nice and melted. I'll take that guy. Come on. There we go. Then we bring these two together roughly need to be squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And that's all there is to it. Keep that going for the next wheel, tire. All right. Should be cooled off. We got nice squeeze out on the inside, which is what we want to see. And we got nice squeeze out on the outside. See that's, yeah, see the outside suffers more. So we got not a good bond there. That looks okay. So we have an opportunity to fix that, and I'll show you. We'll do that when we get to the hot knife part. I'll show you how we do that. All right, so let's take the rear one over there and get that one done also. I'll let junk out. Get our locating features, our pin and our ring. We got our 2 locating features, check. Got our ring and our pin. I'm just gonna have to quick. Ooh, that's hot. Okay, so we're going to put this guy on first. Actually, it's not even big enough for... All right, we'll come back to that. I need a bigger plate. My plate's too small. Okay. Let's take, well, we still got our pin, ring. This guy goes here. Now we squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And hopefully we get a good bond here. Okay. It looks good from the side. Let that sit for a bit. All right, so we just bonded up this rear tire. We're gonna pull it out of the fixture and see how it did. I got good squeeze out. I like to see that. Nice squeeze out all the way around, even into the spike. This actually might have been a perfect bond. We got squeeze out on the spikes as well as along the perimeter on both inside and outside. So this tire is good to go. I just need to trim out that squeeze out. This tire, we got good squeeze out on the inside, but we didn't get good squeeze out on the outside. So we had some unbonded surface here. I think my plate is a little too small for these tires. I should have measured that and I never did. So I'm gonna have to put a bigger plate in there. So I'm going to show you how I fixed this, because I had the same problem on my first one that I did. So I get our fixtures out of the way. So I have my hot knife, which I just made. We got it nice and hot, as we can see by the discoloration. And so the idea here is that you insert the knife all the way up to the point where it separates, and you pull it out and squeeze. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And that creates a good bond. And you just do that all the way around. This stuff sets up pretty fast. Let's see if we can get it in there. There, and that's it. So now we are bonded. The next step is to come in and trim this up a little bit. Much nicer. Okay, razor blade it is. I can't get a razor blade in here. Let's try it again on this guy. Careful not to get too deep into it. Okay, there we go. Looking good. I also, when I do these halves, I leave them about 1/2 millimeter wide on each tire half. Basically 1/2 millimeter past or proud of the midplane, so that when I squish it out, I allow for that extra material to squeeze out and I don't lose tire width. So here I found a spike that is not bonded, so we'll go ahead and use our hot knife technique. We sort of made another tool. I modified one of these chisel blades. Alright, I think we're good on that. We're good on that. That's 2 tires glued up. Yeah, so we got more tires on the printer. So I can get a complete set of tires here pretty soon. And we got the rear wheel on the printer as well, so we'll get that built up and see what it looks like. I'm sure it'll look pretty cool, and we'll just keep plugging away. Thanks for tuning in and watching. Take care. Bye.